In just 8 questions, 300 gigabytes of suppressed evidence, and one simple yes or no question that was never answered, the biggest FBI cover-up in history would explode on live television. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal didn't expect Patel to refuse answering "Are they credible?" 8 consecutive times. Patel didn't expect his own words from 2023 to destroy his 2025 defense. Cameras captured every second as the FBI director went from no cover-ups to nothing to see and couldn't explain the reversal. What did Jayapal reveal about Patel's total reversal on Epstein files that made him explode into the most violent shouting match in congressional hearing history? March 19, 2025, 3:47 p.m. House Judiciary Committee, Rayburn Building. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal from Washington's 7th District sat with a timeline of Kash Patel's own words that would expose the most dramatic policy reversal in FBI history. The civil rights attorney turned progressive firebrand had built her reputation on relentless cross-examination that left no room for evasion. Today, she would deploy that skill to dismantle an FBI director who had promised transparency and delivered suppression. FBI Director Kash Patel sat projecting his usual defiant confidence. He had survived hours of questioning about budget cuts, immigration enforcement, and FBI firings. His standard playbook was working: defend statistics, attack previous administrations, pivot to procedure when cornered. He looked like a director who believed his talking points were bulletproof, but he didn't know that Jayapal had compiled every public statement he had made about Epstein files before becoming FBI director. Statements that directly contradicted everything he was saying now. The hearing had been tense for hours, but at exactly 3:47 p.m., when Chairman Jim Jordan recognized Jayapal for 5 minutes of questioning, the chamber's atmosphere shifted from adversarial to explosive. Political reporters who had been half watching suddenly focused completely. C-SPAN cameras zoomed in on Jayapal's face, capturing the expression of someone about to detonate a carefully documented case of institutional betrayal. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," Jayapal began, her voice carrying the calm precision of a prosecutor presenting an airtight case. "Mr. Patel, before you joined the FBI, you had very strong opinions about what the FBI was hiding regarding Jeffrey Epstein." Patel's expression didn't change, but micro-expressions betrayed sudden discomfort. His hands gripped the witness table edges. He knew exactly where this was heading: to his own words, his own promises, his own credibility. In a September 2023 interview with Glenn Beck, Jayapal continued, reading from documents in front of her, "You said, and I'm quoting you directly, 'The Black Book is under the direct control of the director of the FBI. Let us know who the pedophiles are.'" The chamber fell silent. Those weren't allegations from critics. Those were Patel's own words on tape, publicly demanding transparency about Epstein's client list. Words he had spoken when he had no institutional responsibility, when transparency cost him nothing, when calling out cover-ups made him a hero to his base. In December 2023, Jayapal pressed on methodically, "You said, 'Let us know who the pedophiles are.' Even for a short time after becoming FBI director in February 2025, you tweeted, quote, 'There will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned.'" The timeline was devastating. Patel hadn't just criticized FBI secrecy abstractly. He had made specific, unequivocal promises. No cover-ups, no missing documents, complete transparency. These weren't campaign rhetoric. These were public commitments made by someone who was about to control the very files he was demanding be released. In June 2025, Jayapal continued, her voice rising slightly. "You told Joe Rogan, quote, 'We've reviewed all the information. We're going to give you every single thing we have and can.' Every eye in the chamber was fixed on Kash Patel. The documentary record was perfect." September 2023, demand the files. December 2023, name the pedophiles. February 2025, no cover-ups. June 2025, everything will be released. The progression built toward what everyone suspected was coming, the reversal. But then suddenly in July, Jayapal said, her voice hardening with prosecutorial fury, everything changed. You and Attorney General Pam Bondi released one video and said that there was nothing more to see. The contrast was so stark it needed no elaboration. 6 months of promises, then suddenly nothing to see here. But Jayapal wasn't finished documenting the betrayal. She held up another document, this one bearing official FBI letterhead. Your July memo says you uncovered more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence, but that you had decided no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That is a direct quote from your own memos. 300 gigabytes. For context, that's enough data to fill approximately 75,000 books of 250 pages each. That's not nothing to see. That's a massive archive that Patel had personally reviewed and then decided the American public had no right to access. The contradiction was undeniable. We found 300 gigabytes, but there's nothing worth releasing. And then Jayapal delivered the accusation that would trigger Patel's explosive meltdown. I think what happened, Mr. Patel, is that suddenly you discovered that Donald Trump's name was all over these files and you started a giant cover-up. The words hung in the chamber like a grenade with the pin pulled. Jayapal had just accused the FBI director under oath on live television of deliberately suppressing evidence to protect the President of the United States. This wasn't innuendo, this was a direct allegation of institutional corruption at the highest level. Patel's face flushed red, his jaw clenched, but before he could respond, Jayapal pivoted to the question that would expose the coordination behind the cover-up. So you are under oath, Mr. Patel. You just testified to Mr. Swalwell that you did not speak to the President about the Epstein files. To your knowledge, did Attorney General Pam Bondi speak to the President about what was in the Epstein files? The question was surgical. Patel had already denied speaking to Trump, but had Bondi? And if Bondi Vi had spoken to Trump about the files, then Trump knew what was in them before Patel decided nothing should be released. That would prove coordination between the White House and DOJ to suppress evidence. I can't speak for Attorney General Pam Bondi, Patel replied, using the classic Washington evasion technique of hiding behind someone else's communications. So to your knowledge, you don't have any information, Jayapal pressed. The question was, do you have any knowledge? Do you have any knowledge? I can't speak, Patel tried again. You are refusing to answer the question. Jayapal cut him off with devastating clarity. The FBI director wasn't claiming ignorance, he was claiming he couldn't speak about what he knew. That's the language of cover-up, not transparency. Then Jayapal dropped the bombshell that would make Patel's evasion impossible to maintain. Let me tell you that the Wall Street Journal reported that in May, Bondi told Trump that he was in the Epstein files, and at the same meeting said that the DOJ did not plan to release the files. The timeline was now complete and damning. May 2025. Bondi tells Trump he's in the files and that DOJ won't release them. June 2025. Patel promises Joe Rogan everything will be released. July 2025. Patel announces nothing more to see. The sequence proved coordination and suppression between the White House, DOJ, and FBI. A systematic cover-up orchestrated at the highest levels to protect powerful men named in 300 gigabytes of evidence that would never see daylight as long as Patel controlled the Bureau. But Jayapal was about to shift from documentary evidence to moral confrontation. She brought up the human cost of Patel's reversal, the survivors who had trusted the FBI with their stories and were now being told their testimonies weren't credible enough to warrant prosecution. Yesterday, you testified to Senator Kennedy that there was, quote, no credible information that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone else. Today, in response to Mr. Massey's question, you appear to say that the survivors were not credible. These are survivors. That's not at all what I said, Patel interrupted, his composure starting to crack. Okay, great, Jayapal replied with prosecutorial precision. Let me tell you about the survivors. These are women who came to the Hill and testified that they were groomed and raped at the age of 14 and 16 years old. They have called to meet with the president, to meet with the FBI, to have people investigate their claims. The specificity was devastating, not vague allegations, not anonymous sources, named survivors who had testified publicly about being raped as children by men whose names were in the 300 gigabytes of data Patel had suppressed. and those survivors wanted to meet with the FBI director, who kept claiming he welcomed new information. If you are so interested in getting the public to submit any information, Jayapal challenged, why have you not met with them? Have you met with them? I'll give you one more chance. At 3:49 p.m., exactly 2 minutes into Jayapal's questioning, Kash Patel began the evasion that would be asked 8 times and never answered with a simple yes or no. My job as the FBI director is to inform. The answer is yes or no, Jayapal interrupted, to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped. Patel exploded. His voice rose to a shout as years of criticism finally broke through his careful director persona. Any insinuation by you or any people on your side that I am not manhunting child predators and sex traffickers, just look at the stats. You talk about cover-ups? Where were you during the Obama and Biden administrations when these so-called cover-ups were going on? The deflection was telling. Instead of answering whether he met with survivors, Patel attacked previous administrations. Instead of addressing the 300 gigabytes he'd suppressed, he cited arrest statistics. Instead of explaining his reversal from no cover-ups to nothing to see, he questioned Jayapal's past oversight. Chairman Jordan intervened, trying to give Patel space to respond fully. Time belongs to the gentle lady from Washington. You accuse the witness of something, he's allowed to respond. He didn't even answer my question. Jayapal shot back, her frustration visible. This is not fair, Patel shouted, his professional facade completely shattered. This is my time, and Jayapal yelled back. The hearing had descended into complete chaos, but through the shouting, one fact remained undeniable. Patel still hadn't answered whether he had met with the survivors or whether he considered their testimonies credible. Jayapal regained control and asked the question that would be repeated 8 times with no direct answer. Mr. Patel, are the victims of the Jeffrey Epstein horrific trafficking ring credible? Are they credible? Any person with information about ongoing sexual trafficking... Patel began another evasion. I'm asking you if they're credible, Jayapal interrupted. Ma'am, I'm commenting on the evidence we have, Patel deflected. Are these women credible? It's a yes or no answer, Jayapal demanded. I have answered the question, Patel claimed, though he demonstrably had not. Is there a yes or no, Wak? Jayapal pressed. Present new credible information, Patel replied. A non-answer that implied the existing information wasn't credible without actually saying so. Are the victims credible? Jayapal asked for the 8th time. Patel never said yes. He never said no. He deflected a procedure, previous administrations, Biden, Obama, statistics. Everything except the simple human question of whether 14 to 16-year-old girls who testified about being raped by powerful men were telling the truth. The aftermath was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, #AreTheyCredible was trending worldwide with 4.2 million tweets. The clip of Jayapal asking 8 times and Patel refusing to answer went viral with 52 million views in 24 hours. Survivor advocacy groups released statements expressing devastation that the FBI director wouldn't validate their credibility. Child protection organizations demanded Patel's resignation. But what made this scandal transcend typical Washington controversies was Patel's own documentary record. This wasn't about partisan accusations. This was about Patel's own words. Let us know who the pedophiles are, 2023 versus nothing more to see on 2025. You see, no cover-ups, no missing documents in February versus no further disclosure, appropriate, July. The reversal was complete, documented, and unexplained. Within 72 hours, 3 FBI whistleblowers came forward with allegations that Patel had personally ordered the suppression of Epstein files after learning specific names in the 300 gigabytes. One senior agent told the Washington Post anonymously, "We were told Trump's name appeared frequently enough that full release would be politically catastrophic." Director Patel made it clear that national security meant protecting the presidency from embarrassment, not protecting children from predators. The human cost became devastatingly clear when survivor advocacy groups revealed that multiple Epstein victims had requested meetings with Patel for months and been systematically denied access. They'll meet with social media influencers for publicity stunts, one survivor told ABC News.
But they won't meet with the 14-year-old girls who were raped by billionaires whose names are sitting in 300 gigabytes of suppressed FBI files. Conservative media, which had defended Patel throughout previous scandals, struggled with his documented reversal. Even Tucker Carlson, who had praised Patel on Joe Rogan, opened his show with, "I don't understand how someone goes from 'let us know who the pedophiles are' to 'nothing more to see' without a very detailed explanation, and we haven't gotten one."
By April 2025, Patel's position was untenable. The Maxwell scandal, UFC jets, data breach, Massey's 20 names, and now the proven suppression of 300 gigabytes while refusing to validate survivor credibility made him the most discredited FBI director in history. But what sealed his fate was the 8 times Jayapal asked, "Are they credible?" And Patel couldn't say yes, because saying yes would have required him to explain why credible testimony about powerful pedophiles didn't warrant prosecution or justice. And that answer would have exposed the cover-up he claimed didn't exist.